We've analyzed thousands of medical studies and only brought you the best evidence. Want to know what really works? Then stay tuned and don't forget to subscribe.
You know that first sip of coffee in the morning? For a lot of us, it just feels essential. But as we start hitting our mid-30s and beyond, you might start asking yourself, is this daily ritual actually a friend or a foe to my long-term health? So today, we're going to break it all down and create your personal user's guide to coffee, all backed by science. So let's just jump right in. Is your daily cup a health villain in disguise, or is it a hidden superpower? Especially when we're talking about things like heart health and metabolic syndrome. And that's a big deal because we're talking about that cluster of conditions like high blood pressure and blood sugar that becomes a much bigger risk as we get older. Well, the answer, it's not so simple, but it's really fascinating. Okay, so to get to the bottom of this, we need to look past that morning buzz and see what's actually hiding inside the coffee bean itself. It's actually this incredibly complex chemical cocktail, and that's really where this whole story starts. The real magic here is in what scientists call bioactive compounds. Now, that sounds complicated, but it's not. Basically, just think of them as these tiny natural chemicals that can have a huge effect on your body. Things like powerful antioxidants that fight damage, and even compounds that reduce inflammation. They're the real heroes here. And look, this is where it gets super interesting. It's not just about the caffeine, not by a long shot. You've got things like chlorogenic acid, which is a major antioxidant. Then you've got diterpenes. Hang on to that name. They are super important, and we'll circle back to them. There's also trigonelline, which helps protect our cells, and even melanoids, which get created when the beans are roasted. It's like a whole team of compounds working for you in every cup. All right, so we've got all these power players inside the bean. What does that actually mean for our health in the long run? Well, there was this massive study done with the UK Biobank, and it gives us some absolutely incredible answers, especially if you're over 35 and thinking about things like metabolic syndrome. And when I say massive, I really mean it. I mean, check this out. Researchers followed almost 119,000 people who already had metabolic syndrome, and they watched them for nearly 14 years. A study of this size, it gives us an incredibly reliable picture of what's really going on. And right here, this quote from the study, this is the key. It talks about a U-shaped nonlinear association. All that really means is the Goldilocks effect. Too little coffee isn't the best, and too much is definitely not good. But a moderate amount, that's just right. And this chart, it shows you that sweet spot perfectly. For people with metabolic syndrome, just 1 cup of coffee a day, compared to drinking none, was linked to a 7% lower risk of dying from any cause, and an incredible 11% lower risk of dying from heart disease. I mean, think about that. That's a huge protective effect from something so simple. But, and this is so important, here's the other side of that U. This is where we learn that more is definitely not better, because for that same exact group of people, drinking 4 or more cups a day was actually linked to an increased risk of mortality. Moderation is everything. Okay, so we've nailed it down. Moderation is key for living longer. But it turns out the benefits go even deeper. Let's look at some of the really specific ways coffee can help our bodies beyond just the big picture of longevity. First on the list, and it's a big one, study after study has consistently found a link between drinking coffee regularly and having a lower risk of developing type 2 diabetes. And that's a huge concern for so many of us once we get past 35, right? Now, this one might actually surprise you. It seems coffee could even help protect your eyes. One study found that for people who already had type 2 diabetes, caffeine was linked to a lower risk of diabetic retinopathy, which is a really serious complication that can affect your vision. And the good news just keeps coming. The evidence also suggests a protective effect against certain kinds of cancer. Specifically, the science points towards a lower risk of 2 types, liver cancer and endometrial cancer, just from drinking coffee. Okay, so we've talked a lot about how much coffee to drink, but now we need to talk about the how, because it turns out how you make your coffee might be just as important as how much you drink. This is where the details really matter. So remember those diterpenes I told you to remember? Well, here's why they're so important. These are natural oils in coffee. If you make unfiltered coffee, like with a French press or by boiling it, those oils get right into your cup, and they can actually raise your cholesterol. But get this, a simple paper filter, it catches most of them, making your standard drip coffee a much better choice for your heart. All right, let's tackle the big one, the elephant in the room. I mean, this has to be the number one question everyone has, right? What about sleep? Is my coffee habit destroying my rest? And the answer here is probably not what you expect. It's really not as black and white as you might think. For example, one study did find a link between more coffee and shorter sleep for women with diabetes and hypertension. But, and this is wild, it also linked it to lower bad cholesterol. And then another study found that for active adults, stress was a way bigger reason for bad sleep than coffee was. In fact, in that same group, the people who drank a moderate amount of coffee actually said they felt better emotionally. So what's the takeaway? It's complicated, and it's definitely not one size fits all. Okay, so we've got a ton of information here. The science, the big study, the brewing methods, the whole sleep debate. How do we actually put this all together into a daily routine that makes sense for us? Let's break it down into a super simple 4-step checklist. This is your personal game plan. Step 1, find your moderate zone. Based on that huge study, the sweet spot is somewhere between 1 and 3 cups a day, definitely less than 4. Step 2, choose filtered coffee. That paper filter is your friend when it comes to your cholesterol. Step 3, this is a big one. Just listen to your body. We all react differently. If coffee makes you anxious or you know it wrecks your sleep, then adjust. And finally, step 4, remember to look at the whole picture. If you're not sleeping well, maybe take a look at your stress levels. It might not even be the coffee's fault. And all of this leaves us with one last pretty cool thought. When you manage it the right way, the right amount, the right brew, and really listening to your own body, could it be that your simplest daily habit, that cup of coffee, is actually one of your most powerful health choices? It's definitely something to think about.
If you want to analyze medical questions yourself in seconds, using evidence-based medicine principles, the link to the service is below the video.